Hi, I'm Joe Ellison, and I'm back with a ninth excerpt from my fantasy coming-of-age novel, Mr. Lake. Mr. Lake is the tale of a young boy named Joe and his best friend Billy, who must find out whether or not their elementary school janitor, Mr. Lake, is in reality an undying knight of King Arthur's Round Table, Sir Lancelot du Lac. In this excerpt, Joe and Billy are trailing after their sometimes friend, but more often enemy, Larry Tucci, as Larry goes to talk to a young man named Leon, who may have information that could clear up the entire mystery. Let's look in on Joe's thoughts as he contemplates this adventure. Here we go. Larry and the cat. Larry and the cat. I couldn't stop thinking about the two of them together. Larry's story about Mr. Lake at Wright's Pond was a bunch of baloney. Larry'd never seen the goblet. Somebody had to have told him about it. Somebody had to have told him about Mr. Lake's things, whatever they were. But Larry and the cat... I'd seen them together in the woods when Larry met Leon. I couldn't get out of my mind what Mr. Lake had said about thinking the cat was something you wanted, something that looked good to you. Could the cat look so good to Larry that it didn't even look like a cat to him? That he thought it looked like some good-looking girl? Is that what those 2 years he had on me had done to him? I tried concentrating on something else. I thought about where that feeling I was having came from. Larry, the cat, Leon, all together? Not much to go on, but that's the way it is with feelings. Leon worked at the A-1 body shop on Riverside Ave. If you're coming from Medford Square, the A-1 backs up to the Mystic River a bit before you get to the Meadow Glen Drive-In. I saw Flipper in that drive-in. They got the greatest popcorn, or maybe it just tastes great because you get to eat it stretched out in the back of your dad's country squire, like eating McDonald's hamburgers. Fact is, Howard Johnson's makes lots better hamburgers, but you can't eat 'em in your station wagon without your mother getting her nose out of joint. Billy and I took the Fulton Street bus to the square. Billy was right about the new bus's upholstery. It was red and blue and clean as a whistle. The whole thing looked like my mother'd gone over it with a can of Pledge. It took some getting used to, but we managed. We got off the bus on Forest Street and ran the last couple of blocks, past the high school, past the World War I monument, toward the square. Once we got past the post office, we saw Larry getting kicked out of Mandrakia's cigar store, where they sell Cliff Notes and dirty magazines. We ducked into the alley next to the dry cleaners and watched. Larry stood on the sidewalk, swearing a blue streak at Mr. Mandrakia. My dad calls him Mandrake the Magician because, he says, he only keeps his store open by magic. Mr. Mandrakia came bombing out of the door with a panatella butt in his mouth and a matedu, that's a little billy club, in his hand. He chased Larry down Riverside Ave. Billy and I bolted kitty-corner through the traffic, through the square, and lit out after them. It was all we could do to keep up. Mr. Mandrakia ran out of steam in front of O'Brien's clothing store. I knew Mr. O'Brien. He was a classy old guy. He always dressed to the nines in a pinstripe suit. Whenever Papa took me to his store, Mr. O'Brien always waited on us himself. Probably because Papa was always good for at least 2 suits, and that meant 4 pairs of pants. I would have waved to Mr. O'Brien, but I couldn't stop to look in his window. Billy and I whizzed past Mr. Mandrakia, who was busy coughing his guts out on the sidewalk, and stayed on Larry's tail. Larry slowed down, and by the I-93 underpass, he was taking his sweet time. He walked through it and headed down Riverside toward the A-1. It was a long walk, maybe a half-mile past I-93, maybe a bit more. Billy and I followed at a distance, ducking behind parked cars, walls, and fences. Larry gave no sign he was looking for us, but it's better to be safe than sorry. The last couple of 100 feet of frontage before you got to the A-1, there was practically nothing to duck behind. The property belonged to Minicchiello's scrap iron yard. Mr. Minicchiello kept his piles of scrap at least 20-25 feet from the street. On the far side of his property from us, a chain-link fence ran down the dirt strip dividing the A1's lot from Minicchiello's. Billy and I hung back till Larry disappeared around the scrap pile closest to the curb just this side of the fence. Then we tiptoed along the sidewalk past Minicchiello's, stood behind the pile, and peeked around into the A1's lot. The A1 looked like an old, run-down gas station, but it was a body shop with a pair of red gas pumps in front. Selling gas was nothing but a sideline to the A1. They didn't put any effort into it, none at all. They didn't keep the place clean like an Esso or Flying A station. The pumps were smeared with oil. Cars pulled up to buy gas, and nobody washed their windshields. They never gave away dishes or silverware. They didn't have a Coke machine. They let broken parts rust against the chain-link fence. What I'm trying to say is, the place was a dump. Minicchiello's looked neater, and that's saying something. From where we were standing, Billy and I saw Larry stick his head into the A1's office. I heard him yelling something, but the banging coming from the shop was so loud I couldn't make out what he was saying. Larry got hustled out of the office. He cooled his heels, leaning against the grease-smeared red air pump on the outside wall next to the door. I saw him pluck the nozzle from the hanger. He blew air on his fingers, then on his forearms. Then he stuck the nozzle up his sleeves and blew air at his underarms. Larry was a strange kid. Leon came out of the office door. He was wearing greasy blue overalls, but they were way cleaner than the gas or air pumps. He grabbed the air nozzle away from Larry, pushed him toward the fence, and herded him along the strip back toward the river. Billy and I followed from Minicchiello's side. Scrap piles ran along the fence all the way. We dodged from one to another. Leon and Larry stopped opposite the last pile before the riverbank. Lucky for us, it was far enough away from the shop that we could hear what they said over the banging. And if you want to find out what Leon and Larry say to each other, you'll have to buy a copy of Mr. Lake, which is available in either paperback or Kindle ebook formats, and the Amazon links to it are below, as are links to all my other works, to my Amazon author page, and to my website. Stop in and take a look around. And if you want to hear me read other excerpts, well, there are boxes appearing on either side of my head. Click on one of those. And I would always appreciate it if you'd click on like and subscribe to my channel. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope to see you again real soon.